is theater, film, and television. The other is arts and architecture, of which I am dean. 2 departments in TFT, 6 in arts and architecture, and then 2 departments over in the humanities division of the college. So there are really 10 arts departments at UCLA, a thing that was pretty much invisible, though, in the last few years, and I'd like to take a little credit for it. We've been getting into the LA Weekly, and therefore out to a third of the million people in LA who are interested in culture and the arts, we think, maybe. A calendar for the fall and then the winter and spring quarters that shows everything happening across all the arts. We have 6 research centers in the arts, interdisciplinary research centers in the arts in our school. There are others in TFT, the Hammer Museum, the Fowler Museum, the Film and Television Archive, and UCLA Live. And so it's a pretty big but disorganized. And when the metaphor, which animals got onto the ark, came up the other day, I thought, yeah, we've got some oddly shaped ones. They made it onto the ark, though, so that's the good news. I woke up grumpy this morning, and I went to talk to David and Jesse. At first I was feeling a little grumpy, and I turned on the TV, and there was Obama in Portugal at a NATO press conference, and I looked at him and I said, that guy looks tired. He looks tired because he knows, in retrospect now, he should have maybe been more forceful and defined with some things, and yet on the other hand, this is a person who is given to nuance and reflection. Isn't that nice for a change in a president? And therefore he's caught in a situation of enormous change, and then I thought, not that I'm Obama, I'm not at that level, you know, but maybe that's why I'm a little tired too. We have, and to be absolutely blunt, there are forces moving in the UC system, not clearly understood, I think, though we may have different understandings of them from what we've heard, including the notion that campuses would begin to keep their tuition and fees, and a tax would be levied from OP, right, for the services that OP provides us with. That has raised the question, at least with my chancellor, but I'd imagine with everybody's, of what those services are exactly. Apart from general counsel, we need to defend us when there's a law at the Bold Law School, there's a big settlement that needs to be dealt with, or something that we all pay for. Sorry, I don't mean to wander. But it's programs, and that raises the issue of UCIRA and other system-wide programs. I mean, we're all going to have to defend these system-wide programs, I think, and they will be subject to a period of critical review, I think, coming up. So I just wanted to raise that larger, somewhat depressing contextual issue. However, Dick Hebdige about crisis, right, the root, etymological root of critical theory, and Steve on credo today, that combination of things has made me wake up, and my 3 colleagues so far have made me wake up. So let me just make a couple of points under the heading of alternative arts and economies, which is the theme of our session. First, I agree with Steve about resistance, but I think it also has to be coupled with education. Until the majority of people in this country, the public and this state, think that the arts are worth supporting with their money taxed from their income, we are still going to be fighting an uphill battle, and that's a communications issue, and that's an education issue. Coupled with resistance, we've got to be doing education and communication all the time, and while resisting the reduction of what artists do, of art making, of critical approaches to thinking about art and expressive culture cross-culturally in a global setting, without the reduction of that to some sort of utilitarian outcome, like if you play Mozart for your rubber plant, it will grow faster, and those sorts of arguments, which may or may not be true, but don't help us in the end, I think. So resisting those utilitarian kind of ways of talking about the arts to get public support, and at the same time making sure that we are engaging people and explaining what we do or representing what we do. I think some of this is stuff we would have said in any circumstance, I think. We've had a couple of these panels before, but building alliances, whether it's out to 501c3 nonprofits in your immediate environment, whatever those are. We're working right now with the Thelonious Monk Institute, for example, to set up a new master's degree. We've never had a graduate program in jazz performance before. That's a place that has a complex history, but we've been negotiating to be able to pool resources when we're being cut and they're under threat and they have a board and we have a board. How can we work together to, it doesn't hurt to have Wayne Shorter and Herbie Hancock show up and teach lessons too. Corporations, where it's appropriate, and you want to pick your corporations, of course. But we've been doing work, particularly through architecture and design, working with corporate institutions as well. Integrating ourselves, I heard this a number of times at this meeting, both into the campus, the liberal arts mission, and one example I'll throw out is the Common Book program that started a couple of years ago when Gene Block came in as chancellor, where there's a book that all the freshmen read. Well, they're asked to read. We have no idea whether they read it. We think a lot of them read it. It's distributed to them free of charge. So this year it was Zaytune, Dave Eggers' book, about a family's trial, basically, experience after post-Katrina. Dave Eggers was on our performing arts program. We had a series of meetings between him and students. We're tying in ecological work and so on. So when you can mobilize a campus-wide initiative like that and have the arts at the center of it, not the margins, clearly, whatever trouble we're in, and I just want to say this, I'm not minimizing the challenges we have, K through 12 is totally screwed in this state. Excuse me, pardon my French. Particularly in Los Angeles, the crisis is extremely deep there, and making sure we don't turn our backs on that crisis as we deal with our own issues. Seth, just two more things. Remembering to circle back and excavate and what did you say, Kim? Redo, or going back. What was it again?
Repurpose.
Repurpose, but also I guess I'm thinking about, and also you talking about the unremarkable and the putatively mundane aspects of life as a place where artists can engage. That we don't just study the exotic, the extraordinary, and so on. Cycling back to look at issues in our own curriculum and how we engage with our students. And I'll give you one quick example of which I'm inordinately proud. Not more than I should be. We have created a course for freshmen. One of our other oddities is we have 3 distinct departments that deal with music. We have a department of music that does Beethoven, Bach, and Brahms and contemporary composition. We have a department of musicology with scholars who study not only Beethoven, Bach, and Brahms, but also Miles Davis and Madonna and Prince. And then we have a department of ethnomusicology. It's the only standalone department in this country that deals with the 98% of the music that people make in the world and looking anthropologically at music. We now have a course for freshmen where, and these will sound like stereotypes, but these are people I'm describing to you, actual people. A young violinist from Taiwan who herself says, I was raised in a test tube from birth by my parents practically to be Paganini, to be a great Western classical musician, right? But they're also concerned that I get a liberal arts education. A guy from Malibu, who's a rock drummer, plays in alternative rock bands, has heard gamelan, the Indonesian tradition that was the basis for the Lou Harrison, or one of the important roots of the Lou Harrison piece you heard today, but has heard gamelan and is interested in writing scores for video games. And then a kid from East LA who has about 250 corridos, these magnificent historical border ballads, Texas and California Mexican ballads, but isn't very good at notating music and wants to be able to use those and to notate them and put them to various purposes. All 3 of those students are sitting together now in a year-long class, all freshmen from whatever field, take a class where they hear not only a Bach cantata, but they also hear a Louis Armstrong solo, and they hear the great polyphony, the vocal polyphony of the Central African rainforest, and they hear Chinese classical music and so on. It seems so commonsensical, and it's so odd to me that is done. I don't know that it's done for a whole year with all freshmen anywhere else in the country. So in a sense, it's the most common sense thing, is the most radical thing you can do. But that idea of remembering, even as you're designing alternative spaces, places at the margins, resisting the fixity of the institution, making new places, to circle back to the core of what you do and subject that to critical re-examination based on, what's going on in the world, what your principles and goals are. And I am out of gas.
Thank you.